Is a country, is a state that hates you as a people still your country? Second question we'll answer today is, do you need a state to survive? And the third question is, having the state the only thing you need to survive?
My guest is Tom van Grieken, I'm not quite sure how to say that, a Dutch politician and the leader of the Vlaams Belang. Previously it was the Vlaams Blok, a political party active in Flanders and in Belgium, often described as right-wing or by some even as far right-wing. I invited Mr. van Grieken because he recently spoke at the Libertas International Conference in South Africa, in Pretoria, at the invitation, I guess, of Ernst Roots. And I'm excited to hear your impressions, Tom, of South Africa and the message that you brought back from my home country. So welcome to the program.
Thanks for the invitation. If I may do a small correction, I do speak Dutch, but I'm not a Dutch politician. I'm a Flemish politician. I live in Belgium.
I beg your pardon.
But I'm married to a Dutch woman. I have 3 wonderful children with them, so I don't see it as an insult. I live in the north of Flanders, which is just the Dutch are our neighbors, so I don't see it as an insult. On the contrary, we see the Dutch, like the Afrikaners, as the same people, with the combination of our beloved language.
Yeah, I'm going to say, please forgive me. It's one of those slips, and I think it has something to do with my age. I know absolutely certain that you're a Flemish politician. And I also just looked at this and I thought to myself, why the hell did I say a Dutch politician? But I beg your pardon, be it as it may. Tell me about your visit to South Africa. How did it come about? Why were you invited specifically? And what was the essence of your message in South Africa?
An easy question, long answer. If you let me, first of all, you should, for the international the people who watch this interview, to understand I'm a Flemish politician, and like I said, I live in Belgium. A lot of people in the whole world think Belgium people speak French. We are also created as a French-speaking state, but we're the majority in this country. The majority speaks Dutch. And in our struggle to preserve our identity, our language, you look for who do we look to? And then we have, of course, the Netherlands, which we were once a part of, but also the Afrikaners. So it's quite strange if you see meetings of my party for the past 40, 50 years, you will always see a Prinsenvlag on the stage. So we feel related, like the Dutch are a brother or a sister, and the Afrikaners are a nephew. Mm-hmm. So there's a romantic feeling. There was also a period in Flanders and in the Netherlands, there you find a lot of Afrikaner streets, where there was actually, it was bon ton, it was a common sense that we feel linked with the Afrikaners, also the Afrikaner literature as well. Then, of course, now fast forward 2026, I met Ernst Roots a few times at CPAC. I think a few times in CPAC Hungary, and it's a bit typical. Flemish always find the Afrikaners. You look for somebody who you understand, who you talk to, and we have it was a click. He was very interesting. How smart mind he was, and when I'm now 12 years party leader. I 2 times already I had the honor to have the visit of the people of Solidariteit and Orania, and they're always, when they're in Europe, they always come visit us. We show the Flemish Parliament, and yes, there is a connection. How do we preserve our identity in a globalized world? And can a state protect your identity, yes or no? And if I'm not mistaken, that was Ernst's first goal. Second of all, maybe some product placement. A colleague of mine in the Flemish Parliament, Christophe Slagmulder, wrote a book about the Flemish connection with South Africa. A very interesting book, which I said, let's go together, Christophe. And it was, for me, it was the first time in South Africa. And it was an interesting discussion what Ernst and his team put together, because he was interested, if I understand correctly, for the Afrikaners, they had the feeling that they lost after the apartheid the whole country. Oh, they said the whole South Africa is Afrikaans. The whole country, we will not take a small part of something which is all of us. Which now there is a starting sentiment. Shouldn't we have chosen a small part at least? Then we have a home, a place to stay. Go for a federal way we could have created South Africa, which is quite interesting because we are a federal state. We had this already, and we changed experience. And I must say, having a federal state is not a guarantee to protect your identity and culture.
Was there any prior interest in South Africa? You've been involved in politics for some time now. I read somewhere that you were born in 1986, so you were about 6, 7 years old when Nelson Mandela walked free in South Africa. I'm trying to sort of get a picture of what was your view of South Africa prior to meeting Aaron Roots, prior to engaging with Lex Libertas. And I'm also trying to understand, Tom, if you can include in that as well, how do average Flemish people, how do they view South Africa today?
The Flemish have no longer a single idea that there are Afrikaners, boerenvolk. They have no idea whatsoever. I come from the Flemish movement, which has still the sentiment of, our broedervolk, we're a family from each other. And for example, I come from a students' fraternity, and when we do our activities and we sing cantussen, I think it's also a tradition now introduced by the Afrikaners, which is quite funny. We sing the 3 national songs. We sing the Flemish line, our song, the Wilhelmus, the song of the Netherlands, but also this time we still sing it, and we sing Afrikaner songs. So I got...
Let's just hold on there, Tom. Just say that again. You talk about the Flemish people now. You're saying that you actually
the Flemish movement.
The Flemish movement, I beg your pardon. But let's talk about that. You're saying that you actually sing die stem?
Ja, uit die blauw van onze hemel, uit de diepte van onze zee. We still sing it. I know it's a bit controversial. I'm not sure if it's controversial. We don't feel it's controversial. We sing it as a song of our sister people.
But is it to help me understand that, is it part of your own cultural identity in a sense, or then the identity at least of the Vlaams Blok, Vlaams Belang? Is it a political statement? I'm not quite sure. I'm quite surprised.
Are you? Yeah, no. To understand, we have some time to explain it. If I have to say my party program, Flemish independence, and that's our final goal as a party. But then we say, if we have our independence, we want a very close union with the Netherlands, and we consider ourselves as Dutch-speaking, like one people. But it's something ideologically, it's not anymore in our program, it's not anymore we do propaganda. But for everybody who is active in my party, we're well aware of it, that we're not a unique Flemish people. We're connected with others. Therefore, it's a bit difficult to explain, but the reasons why we say we're a people, Flemish people, we say we have a common history, common language, common culture, and so on. Yeah, if you say what you have in common, then you come quickly with the Netherlands, and also a bit with the Afrikaners. I went to the Voortrekkers Monument. I was told, I was listening, I speak the language of the Voortrekkers, because the oath to the Voortrekkers, it's in plain Dutch. I understand it completely. They spoke Dutch. So therefore, you see the connection. Of course, it's very romanticized. It's not actual anymore. But, and then do back the fast forward, that's the romantic ideological part. Now we have the part about the identity, mass immigration. How do you defend yourself? And because, of course, the Afrikaners are a minority in South Africa. If I give you one number, how long do you think it will take before the Flemish are a minority in Flanders? Make a guess. How many years?
I watched the speech, so I have it somewhere in my brain. I think
16 years, 2040, 2042.
2040, yes, 2040.
So we Flemish
officially then you will become a minority. Let me just
in our own country.
Clear. You'll become a minority in Belgium, or you become a minority in Flanders, or
you could say it quickly, like the Belgians will be a minority in Belgium, therefore also the Flemish will be a minority in Flanders. So we will be quite quick in a situation where the Afrikaners are into. And therefore it was very interesting for me to see how to survive as a minority in a country, in a state who doesn't want you. We know how to survive as a majority in a state that doesn't like us, but it will be a bit more difficult in the future for us. And there we found each other, how Lex Libertas, but also Solidariteit, Orania, but also other movements we met there, how they see the way to survive, protect your cultural identity.
Yeah. I just want to go back to I'm really truly fascinated that you said that you sing and you know the words of Die Stem. I think there are a number. I'm not going to.
Is it controversial in South
a lot.
Africa?
I don't think it's controversial. No, I think a lot of young, even Afrikaners, might not be able to actually sing the Stem today.
Yeah, but if you be honest, I think in the whole of Flanders, maybe 10,000 people will know it. Not more. It's not something common, but for me, it's part of my identity.
Yeah, but the glue that links you, that would be based on the language. Is
language is a very important,
the feeling of a family, and in your understanding of your own identity, part of your family. And I'm trying to think of it, is it part of Tom van Grieken's genetics, or is it the genetics of the Flemish people? There is this instinctive genetical bond.
The genetics of the Flemish, if you talk real genetics, there's a connection, but way more with the Dutch, the South Dutch, the Flemish were not so involved with the Voortrekkers and the Afrikaners. There are some links, but not so much as the Dutch. So the language is certain something very important. And then, of course, which is politically more controversial, we in Europe are also faced with forms of, I don't like the term because we are, it's too American, but anti-white racism, which the Afrikaners are faced as well. And then the Afrikaners has also the extra layer that they are even considered as the English, that they are Afrikaners are like the English colonizers, and they have an extra layer on it as well, the Afrikaners. But so the struggle to protect your identity and being faced with something which is culturally hostile environment. We consider it Brussels, 80% is non-autonomous Belgian anymore, Antwerp 50% already. It's a matter of time that our capital will be like Johannesburg, and that I don't have to explain to Afrikaners what that means.
I understood from your speech that this was the first time you went to South Africa, the first time you actually went to Africa, if I'm right.
Yes.
I'm trying to puzzle out, when did you become, as a young man growing up and becoming politically active and involved in politics, when did South Africa become something that played in your consciousness, the political evolution of South Africa? And let me add to that then the question, Tom, reflecting then on the changes in 1994 when South Africa became a democracy, how did you view all of that? History and the new South Africa.
For me, it was becoming active in political students' organization. Like when I was in high school, so it was quite strange. I met an organization, Voorpost, and they were orange, white, blue flags. I was like, why do you carry the Dutch flag? I thought it's very strange because our flag is yellow and black. And they simply explained it to me. You should know we're from, if you live in Belgium, you shouldn't like the Dutch. But it's not rational, it's French influence. So I got influenced, and when I was at high school, I was in an old library at my school, and I found Afrikaner books. And so, was this such a strange language? You should know we're very, very fond of the Afrikaner language, even also more progressive people. We have a famous writer, Tom Lanois, who really calls himself almost a communist, but he lives in South Africa and he loves the Afrikaner language. It's something like exotic to us. Buy a donkey. It sounds for us very like, oh, how cute! Everything is so. And for us, we use a lot of English or French words. That the Afrikaners find their own language, find their own words. For us, it's exotic, and we feel what a pride people do that. So that's the first time I really got information about that. Then second of all, I had a member of parliament when I was no member of parliament, who was for many, I think more than 15 years. She was a dentist in South Africa. She talked very fluently Afrikaans. She talked me about it. Also, quite strange to know, the Afrikaner hip hop group, the Antwerp.
Yes, I do.
Yes, but they're quite famous in our country. So we think it's quite exotic, and we understand some words of it. So, so that's something which, those are the things. Afrikaans is quite important. Then maybe I should add something as well, because your previous question. Is it politically smart to defend the cause of the Afrikaners in Flanders? No, it is not. We will be always labeled like, why do you defend the white, the idiotic term, but anyway, in Africa and so on. But because we are ideologically driven, if we don't defend them, who will be the voice of the Afrikaners? So when I was a student, I did manifestations to remember the Plasmoord. We had October, we do the balloons in the air. I did it all. We ask questions in parliament. We feel it our obligation. If we don't defend the Afrikaners, then we lose a part of our identity. Now, your question about Nelson Mandela and the fall of apartheid, or even the fall of the Berlin Wall, because I consider that as one as a whole. It's a consequential action. I only know it from history books. Very important to know. For my generation, I've never known the division between East and West. I've never known apartheid. For me, it is like a discussion about Jacobism in France.
Yes, I get it.
Or the French Revolution. Yeah. So I feel about the debate not such a strong emotion as people who lived it, advocated it, or fought it. So I'm more objective about it. Like, of course, I can be more. Without complexes, I can say there were some positive aspects of apartheid, but I can easily say it. Some things were terribly wrong. It was fundamentally wrong. I can say it, and I don't feel I don't feel like that I betray the Afrikaners' interest when I say there were some things really, really wrong with apartheid. But I don't feel a white supremacist if I say there were also good things about apartheid. I'm without any complex. I can talk about it. But Nelson Mandela. It's just a historic figure, like any other historic figure who had positive sides and also negative sides. I think the core of Nelson Mandela was a good thing because the inequality was fundamentally wrong. But let's not deny the aspects of the ANC, how terrible things they did, and with the good there was with Nelson Mandela, there was also a lot of bad with it, which we still see nowadays. Nowadays, we see more race laws in South Africa than during apartheid against the Afrikaners. Yeah.
You don't, and this is what you just told me now, in effect, you don't have that kind of emotional connection to the old. If I talk about old Europe, I talk about the divided Europe. The falling of the Berlin Wall did not make any. There's no emotional kind of relationship with any of that. I stood on the wall the day it fell. So I had a very definite connection to all of that, and I grew up in apartheid, so I have a very a visceral connection to all of that. You are freed in a sense from all of that. You don't have any of that. Also in respect of apartheid.
Yes, and also it has positive things and negative things. The positive thing is you can do it with less emotion, objectively. Mm-hmm. But if you're not well informed, you do it you can make mistakes.
But you also, at the same time, you're an educated man, you're a politician, you've been a political activist all your life. You're obviously a very smart man. In your evaluation and shaping your views about South Africa, as a politician at least, I would imagine that you would consider the fact that, for example, I think in 1976 or whatever the case might be, the United Nations declared apartheid a crime against humanity. Now, my question is, I understand you don't have that emotional connection that we just talked about, but just objectively, how would you then, if you have that objective hat on, how would you interpret the history of South Africa, the fall of apartheid, the creation of the new democracy? How would that shape your understanding?
I'm a politician, therefore I make laws. And why we understand the Afrikaner cause better than others, the modern concept of state is based on the French Revolution, the French Republican. We're all same. We're equal among citizens. Mm-hmm. There is no distinction, and I'm for the full 100% supporting that. And if you consider apartheid, citizens weren't equal, therefore it's not acceptable as a form of state.
Yeah,
it's true. But this said, there's also another thing that the UN Declaration says in Article 1, Paragraph 2, is the self-determination of people. You can go, if you're a people, you can govern yourself, which we call to. And I think every people has the right of its own nation. Yeah, the Afrikaners also have the right to have their own nation. And for them, it was the whole of South Africa. So I understand the way they implemented it was very terrible, bad. But now let's go fast forward. If you answer, if you talk to somebody of color in South Africa, I talk to a few, and some dare to say, because they're not lived the time, were we better or worse off? Concerning healthcare, for example, I would say something like that, which is very expensive. You live apart. You say, your freedom is the highest good ever. If you don't have good healthcare, it's your own fault. But now there's some sentiment, but at least we had healthcare. So if you don't, there's a song which I know from when I was young. It was a song. A people is not. A people doesn't know what free. I would say it like a rich person doesn't know what it is to be poor. A free people does not know what it truly means to be unfree. Mm-hmm. And when you're free, then you think freedom is for granted. And therefore, they're way too easy to say, was it so bad? Maybe there were some good aspects. But if you don't have freedom, you have nothing. And I think, therefore, I think I know the cause a bit, not bad, but I'm quite informed. So I don't always want to place it in perception. If you have good healthcare and good education, but you're not free, you're not really free. I'm very obsessed with the Irish cause and the struggle for freedom. A people unfree shall never be at peace. An island unfree shall never be at peace. You underestimate then what it's if you deny, why did they complain about? They didn't have the same rights or the same freedom as we do. Then you have no feeling or recognition what it means to be free.
Am I right if I say that if you look at the broader body, I'm not talking about your singular experience now, I talk about the broader experience of the Belgian people, or the Flemish people. Would I be right or wrong if I say that the mass, the bigger collective will still today, 30 years post-apartheid, view the collapse of apartheid in the spirit of the joy that was experienced back in 1994 when South Africa became a democracy? It was massive, not only in South Africa, but it was internationally a massive moment, an enormous moment in history. And obviously you were but a young boy then, so you don't have all of that. So I'm trying to understand whether your thinking is different or might be different or unique because you are you were but a boy when all of these things happened. You don't have that emotional connection
I
to the
think
history of South Africa.
it will go to the core what you actually ask. Was the struggle something worth to destroy apartheid? Then I think the struggle was not for nothing. I think as long as the word apartheid exists in our language, it will be considered as something negative and not something which people would like to go back to. That is common sense in the whole of Belgium and Flanders.
Yeah. The question I'm really asking,
but the emotion with it, like it's the beginning of a new world and everything will be better, that's completely gone.
Yeah.
Because they're well informed how Johannesburg has changed, how corruption has grown, what political tension there is. That is also what it means, the end of apartheid. So they're well aware of that as well.
I'm trying to figure out, how do the average person in Belgium view South Africa, feel South Africa, experience South Africa, and when did that freedom that was given to South Africa, that was so massively celebrated at the time, when did that turn into the plight of the Afrikaner, the new narrative?
I think, to be honest, the Afrikaner.
Do you understand what I'm trying to ask you?
Yes, I think it's a generational thingy, which I try to understand where you're coming from and try to understand how I stand. I think, let's be honest, I have a big heart for the Afrikaners, and I said it earlier. Nobody knows about the Afrikaners. It's a forgotten people. At the best, you're English who speaks strange Dutch language. That's the common sense. The idea of the happiness that finally South Africa was freed, you have no idea how short-minded, short-term mind people are. I think if I would ask, I guess, and I'm guessing, I think people would think always South Africa was South Africa, and there were always people like Nelson Mandela running the country. It's like asking. To be honest, I'm a bit too much involved, but I think if I zoom out and be objective, it's like saying, do you know when Algeria was a part of France? Nobody knows anymore. Nobody knows it.
My experience, Tom, to actually help you out on this, is that when I talk to young people here in Amsterdam, they don't even know what apartheid was. And if I talk to young people here in Amsterdam and I mention Nelson Mandela, they would say, Nelson who? There's a park, there's a statue recently, a couple of years ago, erected for Nelson Mandela in a park in the eastern side of Amsterdam. And the schools had to do projects to inform the kids about who's this guy that they see the statue of in Amsterdam East. So I'm with you now.
200% correct. The international aspect of what happened in South Africa, I think give it a decade or two and it's completely gone.
So here's the question then, is what is the narrative now? What is the narrative to the average person in Flanders today when you refer to South Africa?
South Africa is like any other African state. Corrupt, growing demographics, nice to go to on holiday, but if you come home, they're also coming here. Basically, there is some connection with resources, gold, diamonds, and so on. Like we have a connection with Congo and so on, of course. But I don't want to insult. A beautiful place to go on holiday. By far, you have to go to the Cape. You have to go to South Africa. But it is. Sorry, my dear Afrikaners friends. I think for the Flemish people, simply not politically active. It is like Nigeria or Uganda. It is an African state.
So am I then right if I say that Tom van Grieken is a singular voice that is telling the story of the Afrikaner today?
Yes,
and most of your audience are totally ignorant of what this is all about.
Yes, completely. What we're doing in Parliament for the Afrikaners, I see people looking at us. What? And what are you doing? And oh yes, there's people, but weren't they all bloody racist because they're white? No, of course not. They're even older than some other African people living there. It's not an uphill battle. It's an uphill Mount Everest battle we're fighting.
Yeah, yeah.
But make no mistake, if I believe I have a unique people with a unique language, unique culture, then I feel obliged to do it. We lose votes by defending the Afrikaners, but I feel obligated to do it. It's like, yeah, it's like family. I do know, even in my family, we're not the best or not always the brightest or the most sportive person or the most beautiful, but I only have one family. I love it with all my heart, so therefore I have to defend it.
Let me ask you this on, I think it was in May 2025, Donald Trump told the world that
Yes.
there's a white genocide going on in South Africa. Obviously, much a reference to the killing of farmers in South Africa. How did that color not only your personal view, understanding of South Africa, but I remain and stay interested in the collective, the Flemish people, the Belgian people. How did that color their idea of
No,
South Africa?
because the spokesperson is Donald Trump, nobody listens. He's not popular in Europe, so nobody listens. And again, it was again a racial thing. Why genocide? But okay, I'm not really anti-English people in South Africa, but I'm for the Afrikaners, which they completely do not understand. And I know this was one article in the biggest news site, and it was a fact check when Donald Trump said it. Is there truly a genocide of the whites? And then they said the plaasmoorden are not murders because of their race or ethnicity. They're just criminality to rob people.
Mm-hmm.
That was the official state television who did the fact check. Yeah, that's the only information that people get with us. For me, we did it like it's small. We do a small contribution. I know it's controversial in South Africa. Don't care. Steve Hofmeyr, he came to Flanders. We invited him. I really liked him. He's a really entertainer. He's a great charisma. But he made a movie. He directed or he played with it. It was Treurgrond. It was called the movie.
Yes.
And we because no cinema brought this movie. We rented two cinemas and we showed it to the audience because it was a good way to introduce with a beautiful story about the plaasmoorden. Did we won one single vote with it? No, we did not. But maybe a bit strange comparison. Nelson Mandela didn't defeat apartheid by himself, but because he had advocates in the rest of the world to tell the story about Nelson Mandela. I'm not sure if we're the best ambassadors, but at least we do it. We tell the story of the Afrikaners in 2026.
I want to continue on this line, but first a little bit about your party, Tom. Just tell me, and this touches, of course, on some of the key issues, migration, immigration, multiculturalism, etc., how the face of your country has changed, and also that's where I think your sense for South Africa and your support and interest for the Afrikaner also comes from. But just give me an idea of the core mission of your party. What inspired the founding of the first Vlaams Belang and today the Vlaams Belang? And what are your core issues?
The core issue is very simple, very clear. We believe in the self-determination of people, which is our founding fathers. We go actually way back from the foundation of the country of Belgium, 1813. It's an artificial state where they forced two people to live together. Because we were actually part of the Netherlands, which we had our own language, we had our own culture. Because of the division of the northern Netherlands, the Netherlands nowadays, and us, we only have our own university for 100 years. Belgium exists 200 years. It was deep in the 60s before we had our own, that the anthem was officially also in our language. My grandmother had to go simply high school in French if she wanted to study. So still our votes are less worth because we're Dutch-speaking people than the French-speaking in our country. So we go way back, but we were founded in 1977 because as long as Belgium exists, but it's interesting now the discussion is the same in South Africa. We always there were two groups in the Flemish movement, those who want to reform Belgium from within, and those who said, forget Belgium, we need to do it ourselves, independent. And there are all different tactics, but basically it's a division until today. Nowadays, there's another Flemish nationalist party who lives the prime minister of Belgium. They want to reform Belgium from within. We want to break up Belgium. It's the same division all the time. 1977 is again a discussion in an old party. It's the Volksunie, People's Union. And there were the radicals who said, for the first time, let's go completely independent. So the self-determination of people. But then you see, after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the Apartheid and so on, you see also mass immigration coming massively to Europe. And because what are you with your nation being independent? Why are you with the Flemish nation if you have no Flemish people left, no Flemish identity, no Flemish culture? And then we added a second layer to our discourse, to our program in the beginning of the 90s, which was anti-migration, migration critical, where we say, we want zero migration stop and asylum stop. We want remigration. With those people who are here, you don't choose where you come from, but if you don't choose your future, you have nothing to look for here. And then we had also, I don't want to say it's a one-on-one topic, but also the rise of crime. The more diverse your city becomes, the more unsafe people feel and the crime rates go up, something in South Africa they know as well. So those are three main topics nowadays, which is like Flemish independence, which is a bit like the Afrikaner cause, not so popular, nobody really cares anymore, but it's our core, we have to tell it, we keep saying it. The anti-migration and security. And we add also, because we're now called liberals, who believe only the free market and capitalism will arrange everything, so everybody will be happy. I buy, therefore I am. We don't believe in that. We believe in free market, but socially corrected, strong social security.
Yeah, you said earlier in the discussion, Tom, that did you say 2040, you will be a minority in your own country. I saw a report not too long ago, maybe something I saw on YouTube or whatever the case might be, about how police, for example, find it difficult to enter certain areas in Brussels. Sketch me what has happened to your country in terms of migrants that have entered the country, and also, if you can, help me out on understanding the engine of migration, the motivation forces. What drives migration? Is it family reunion because there's been a lot of people from these countries that are already here in Europe? Is it economic? Is it war? What drives it?
Okay, first of all, we do not believe there's a big plan to change our people and open the gates. We simply say there are
the Islamification of Europe. There's not a big plan like that.
No, we do not think it is. What we do think is we've seen an unnatural coalition of the left. You know, the left wants a beautiful idea of workers to level them up, good education, good wages. But all the workers now vote for right-wing parties. Why? Because they don't like mass immigration, they do believe in identity. So they're losing voters. So they needed new voters, the left. And then you have the classical right-wing liberals who want cheap labor forces. So they found each other, which until 1989, they were adversaries. Suddenly, they had a common ground. The ones need cheap labor forces. The others need new voters. So therefore, you get mass immigration. Mass immigration, the debate in all of Europe is especially about asylum, which is a big thing. But you said it right. The unification of families, which is the biggest influx in our country. But the second part.
Let me just interrupt you here for one moment. Am I right if I say that this kind of mass migration that we've seen in the last years, that really started off around about the 70s already?
Yes, so 70s, 80s, and it goes up 2000, 2010 with Merkel, with Schaffendas, and it actually simply continues. You can easily say that approximately 60,000, 70,000 each year come to Belgium. When I was at school, beginning of 2000, high school, we said Belgium had a population of 10.5 million. 20 years later, we say that Belgium has a population of 11.5. 90% is because of the effects of mass immigration.
Yeah.
To understand, 50% of the high school children in my city, Antwerp, is Muslim. 80% is non-Belgium in Brussels. 80%. To understand, people have a social...
So let me repeat that. Let me repeat that again. 80% of the
80%.
citizens of Brussels
Yeah.
are non-Christian or Muslim.
No,
or
no. There's a big difference. You have 80. To be honest, 50%. Notice the facts in Antwerp. I know 50% of minor 18s are not Belgium anymore.
Mhm.
That's terrible, and that's terrible facts and figures. Not because the problem is with the individual. I know a lot of immigrants or children from immigrants who simply want a better future, are decent people. It's a numbers game. It's a complete numbers game where you're a minority. If you go to the majority of the schools in Antwerp, yeah, if you're there as a Flemish person, you're with one or two, and the rest doesn't speak the same language as you at home. You lose a lot of your identity. So if you walk to the streets, you can't read anymore in certain neighborhoods the names on the stores. We have debates we have never had before. Can you wear a headscarf as a police officer or before a school? Can something strange? If you marry somebody, the person who marries somebody for the state, and the woman refused to shake the hand of the civil servant, discussions we never knew before. It's disruptive all over the place, and of course, like I said, mass immigration, criminality, and I don't generalize anything, but
Yeah.
if you know that 50% of the people in our prisons are from don't have the Belgian nationality. Social security, we asked for the facts. We Flemish are 60% of the population. Only 14% of people who get social security, social welfare, live in Flanders, which means 86% is French-speaking or non-Belgium. It's simply a massive numbers game, and therefore we say we need to stop the mass immigration because we will be like the Indians, the last of the Mohicans, very, very fast.
All right, back to South Africa. We have to start closing down. I had to listen to your speech. Let's listen to a small part of your speech.
This morning I woke up with 3 questions I want to answer. Is a state that hates you as a people still your country? Second question we'll answer today is, do you need a state to survive? And the third question is, having the state the only thing you need to survive? Let's begin with the first question. Is a state that hates you as a people still your country or your state? For me and my people, it's clear. It is no. No, it is not.
You started your speech by asking your audience, and I quote from this speech, is a country, a state that hates you as a people, still your country? The first obvious question that popped into my head is, are you suggesting that the African National Congress-led government hates the Afrikaner people?
Yes.
And why do you say that?
I would say yes. Otherwise, you would not make racial laws. Like, forget the name the whole time, but there is an obligation to hire
Black economic empowerment laws.
That if you come from a struggle against apartheid and you impose such a law, then you hate a certain ethnic group in your country. I'm a proud nationalist. I defend my people. I'm well aware there will be always French-speaking people also in my country. I'm well aware there will be people from other origin in my country. I would never ever allow such a racial law in my country. And if a state implies racial laws, where there are second-degree citizens, you should fight it always. And if it's accepted by a government of, there is a tradition in South Africa, modern in South Africa, to be the broad coalition.
Yeah.
If the broad coalition accepts something like that, it's not your state.
Yeah, yeah. I get
It's
your point.
as simply as that. I cannot say, I would not, if we do the same with black people, they would say the state would hate black people. But if you do it with white people, of Afrikaner people, then the state doesn't hate white people or Afrikaner people. No, it's just a logical saying.
Yeah. What do you say to those people who support the law? That would be people within the African National Congress, and I guess those who also massively abuse the laws. And I'm not talking about the corruption of these laws. I talk about the core principles of it. Those that I say that the principle is the moral obligation to try and rectify the injustices of the past.
No, you cannot rectify injustice of the past. It doesn't. You can't change the past. You only can change the future. And if you want to change the future with racist laws, you will contaminate the future. Simple as that. What happened, happened. We cannot fix it. Shape the future. That's what you do. And if you say we need racial laws, otherwise my people or black people doesn't get a job, then you hate your own people. Because if you're truly proud of your people, and you say this is the best people in the world, a proud people, and of course the best person will get the job. Because it's a communist idea, of course, that a company would not hire the best people, but only its own people, which is idiotic. You know why? If you only hire stupid white people, you know what happens? You get bankrupt. And there will be racist business owners. But if they only hire stupid, unqualified people, he will go bankrupt. Yeah. Hire. The only standard is, do you reach the bar? Are you qualified or not? And which skin color, which language you speak is of non-importance.
Yeah, this is just a shot in the dark. Do you know, perhaps, or are you aware of, or have you heard Belgian business people, for example, saying that I won't invest in South Africa because of the laws?
Yes. It is terrible, not only for those, because you can't hire who you want. Second of all, it's very difficult once you put in money into South Africa to pull it back out. It's one of the main troubles to find investors in South Africa.
Your host, Lex Libertas, and organizations like AfriForum and Solidarity and all these organizations are all of them more or less pushing for some form of, well, obviously more autonomy for Afrikaners, some form of devolution of power. On the more extreme side of it, there are even people talking and calling for the balkanization of South Africa, own homeland, etc., etc. Big picture, do you believe South Africa, as is defined by its national borders, is a construct that was imposed on the country and its people by the colonial powers?
Yes.
And do you believe that it can, in some way or another, be undone without chaos?
Borders are not in stone. It can be changed. If I would reshape the whole African continent, I would not do it by the colonial powers of France and Great Britain. I would do it by people, which would be more logical. Now also, black people are divided between states like we were divided to the Netherlands, because it's also shaped by imperialistic powers. Belgium was shaped by imperialistic powers, so we know how it feels to be separated from your own people and be forced to live with other people. So yes, because I'm a proud nationalist, I know it's a bit controversial to say it in English terms, but in Europe, the times are changing. Our prime minister calls himself a nationalist. So because I'm a nationalist, therefore I'm anti-imperialistic and anti-colonialistic, because I believe, again, the self-determination of people. I think, of course, the shape of South Africa is more natural than, for example, how they draw Congo and all those crazy draw lines on a map. Why does the Middle East have so much conflict? Yes, they deny the identity of people. They draw lines like the discussion about the cake. No, imperialism is something you should always fight as a people.
Yeah, I think I am correct if I say that most of the wars that are fought in Africa has got to do exactly with that. These
sure, of course, they deny the identity. And there may be 300, 400 years separate of the Dutch. Go abroad. We think they're quite annoying and loud, the Dutch, but we will not go to the French or the Germans to have a beer. We will talk to the Dutch.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I know you're not an expert of South Africa, but you obviously know your own country. My understanding is that that Flanders, Wallonia, the two, let's call it states, provinces within Belgium, within the borders of these two provinces, let's call it provinces, you would have a majority of Flemish people living in Flanders, and you would have a majority of French people living in Wallonia. I'm
Yes.
not sure if that's
99%. It's correct.
So there's a certain amount of logic then in being
Yes.
able to draw those borders. But South Africa has become a scrambled egg, one would argue, and there's not one single, even if you bring it spatially down to a municipal level, where you have, for example, even a majority of white people in one geographic location, except perhaps in Orania. Now, does that not make it virtually impossible to create little balkanize or create mini countries within South Africa, provinces, cultural units, whatever you want to call it?
Sure it is. It's truly a problem. But we believe that having your own nation, your own borders, your own control is the best security for peace. As long as your Balkanization, how did the Balkan got now sort of less balanced out? The Croatians have their own country, the Serbs have their own country, they even, now we're not a bit bigger Albania, but at least Albania, Kosovo, North Macedonia, because they have their own state, they say fighting for your own state is war and not peace, but it's the other way around. Having your own state gives you peace. It's not me to decide for the Afrikaners and all the other people who live in South Africa, because it's not only a question of the Afrikaners alone to answer. But if I would suggest something, cut your losses. We lost a bit of Flanders, Lille, the north of France, it's also Flanders. We lost it a few hundred years ago. We lost a bit for the Dutch. We lost a part. But losing your people is the worst. Losing territory is not the end.
Yeah. If I understand it correctly, you also visited Orania.
Yes.
What was that like?
A bit strange. I must say I was a bit skeptical when I was there. I do not think Orania is the ultimate solution.
Beste mensen van Orania, beste vrienden, bedankt dat ik hier mag staan voor jullie in Orania, samen met mijn collega's Johan Dekbijn en Christophe Slagmulder, op deze toch wel bijzondere plaats. Het is voor mij een grote eer hier te mogen spreken voor jullie. Voor mensen die aan de andere kant wonen van de wereld, maar die toch zoveel gemeen hebben met ons, Vlamingen. Want ja, wij leven duizenden kilometers van elkaar. We spreken met een beetje een ander accent. Maar wanneer ik hier rondkijk, en ik heb hier de afgelopen dagen rondgelopen, dan voel ik eigenlijk geen afstand. Ik zie mensen bij wie ik mij thuis voel. Ik zie een broedervolk. Ik zie familie.
A bit strange. I must say I was a bit skeptical when I was there. I do not think Orania is the ultimate solution. It's something like retreating, but I think it's a part of the solution. It's maybe not the best parallel, certain nowadays, to make it. There can be, the Jewish community can live in the whole of Europe, the whole of the world, but of a place that they can call home, Israel. Maybe Orania, if it gets bigger, really a city, let's dream, because everything starts with a dream, it could be the safe haven for Afrikaners in the whole of South Africa. But I'm afraid the state will not allow to make Orania a success. There's also another thing which the possible, if they're mad at me, they're mad at me, but I believe people are social creatures. So you get new ideas, you get more value of trade if you meet other people. Orania is the middle of nowhere. That's why they can preserve Orania. But at the end, you need trade connection with other people. You can be an abbey where you preserve your ideas and your books, or you can be, I don't know, have to find, you speak Afrikaans, voorpost, like a fortress to the borders where you send out missionaries.
Yeah.
That's the the strategy they have to decide. Is it something internally protect what you have, we pass like monks your identity and be the most pure of the pure, or will you create something? And I think they have some really potential with their schools and what they're trying to do to be missionaries. Like if you come from Orania, you're not some strange racist who go back to your white village, but a normal people who studies in Pretoria. Where are you from? I'm from Orania. Oh, are you from, but you're a normal guy. Yes, of course. If you want, come over for the weekend. Let's have a braai in Orania. You come there, there's normal people. Make sure that the inhabitants of Orania are the best ambassadors of the Afrikaner culture. Preserve your identity, your language there, but don't close yourself from the rest of the world. That would be my suggestion. And therefore, I was quite surprised how open Orania was. That was, I had an idea like I had only from the media, but how open-minded they were and how they were able to discuss everything. Is it a good solution? Is that a good solution? How do we work things out? And the whole idea, why I fell in love, right? I love South Africa for the language, for the nature. I think it's one of the most beautiful countries in the world. But they talked about Solidariteit, AfriForum, Orania, and so on. They talk about, you should help me with the translation, Zelfredsaamheid.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you say it in English?
Zelfredsaamheid. The word escaped me now, but taking care of yourself, yes.
Yeah.
Selfredingskap is the Afrikaans word.
Yeah, you can't count on the state, so you have to do it yourself. The whole idea of the pioneers' idea, we're in the bush, and we can't count on anybody, only on ourselves. And I came back to Europe, and you know what I thought? The future of the Afrikaners is more bright than those of the Europeans. Because we Europeans became lazy. We think the state, something unpersonal, should solve the problem. Somebody else, if I have a problem with security, I will call the police. If I have a problem with healthcare, I will call some. And the Afrikaners, because their pioneer mentality, say, what can I do?
Yeah.
What can I do? And I think if you have that as a nation, as a people, I think you're better armed for the future than the lazy Europeans.
Yeah, we build, we create. I think we say in Afrikaans, 'n boer maak 'n plan. It's the basis on which a lot of this works.
Boeren maken plan, the whole idea.
Two little questions I want to ask you to end this discussion with, and we're out of time here. During your Lex Libertas speech, you said, like a mother fight for her children, a nationalist fight for his people.
Yes.
We fight for identity, we fight for tradition. You have a right to fight for your identity. My question connected to all of that is, do you think that to maintain that identity, it is an absolute necessity, a condition of, to have a piece of land, soil under your feet, a physical geographic location, which is your own?
No, but because Afrikaners are Europeans actually from origin, we need it. So we believe ideologically we believe you need certain aspects. We believe 4 and actually 5: common language, common history, common region, common values, and common future. Do you need all 5 aspects to call a people? No. The Irish don't speak Gaelic anymore, so they lost one of them, their language, but they're still a unique people. Do you need your country, same region? Almost everyone will say yes. There are 2 exceptions. The Jews, for a long time, they were a distinguished, unique people without an own country, and Gypsies, for example. But you have also Bedouin people in Morocco, and so it's not necessary, but it's really exceptional that you don't have your own ground, because it's the beginning of civilization. When man was no longer hunter, but farmer, civilization starts. So I truly believe, can you be Are you fully human if you don't have a home and you're only living from day to day and sleep under a bridge? Sure, people can live in the bush. There are some people who can do it. There's like survival skills, but at the end, I need a small place to call home because it's the best way to give protection, food for the next generation. So therefore, you need land.
You support the sovereign space, however you define that for the Afrikaner. This is my last question, and I do it a little bit tongue-in-cheek because I thought, well, there he is saying all these nice things. Question is, why will the Afrikaners succeed if you failed? Because if I understand it, Tom van Grieken, you're Flemish. Your people are 60% of the Belgian population. You've been fighting for independence for nearly 200 years without success. Why do you believe the Afrikaner, who are only 6% of the South African population, will have success?
Because Vlamingen don't have a plan. That's the whole idea. The Afrikaner, boeren maken plan, Vlamingen niet. We lose ourselves in too much discussion. You know what the difference is a bit? We got too wealthy. We all have our home and one or two cars at our home.
Yeah.
We don't feel the need anymore. But wealth is not forever. And there will be a time that my people will be well aware that fighting for your home is something to fight for. Because of consummation, capitalism, we have the idea, je consume, donc je suis, I buy, therefore I am. I think I'm free because I can have a holiday all in for 2 weeks, God knows where. I am free, but it's not real freedom. And one day, I hope it's not too late, the European people will wake up and understand freedom is something worth fighting for, which money can never compensate.
We'll close it down there. Tom van Grieken, thank you very much. Leader of the Vlaams Blok. It's not
Vlaams Belang. It's only 20
Vlaams
years ago
Belang.
we changed their name.
It's a great honor to meet you, Tom.
Bye.
Thank you very, very much for this, and I hope that you'll be back in South Africa soon.
I hope so as well.
Thanks so much.